CPS took Miya, and after I heard that, I just knew that that wasn't true.
A new life is the universe's most profound promise, a tiny, breathing testament to hope and a future yet unwritten. We see that potential in every gummy smile, in the trusting grasp of a miniature hand. We believe in the innate instinct to protect that perfect, fragile innocence. But sometimes, in the shadows cast by that very light, that sacred promise is shattered. And the most haunting question isn't always who committed the act, but who stood by and watched the silence grow, allowing an entire future to simply vanish. In the early hours of October 12, 2023, a child named Miya Rudd entered the world in Owensboro, Kentucky. She was the youngest in a household of 4 children, welcomed by her parents, Tesla Tucker and 𝐀𝐫𝐜𝐬𝐿 Rudd. While her oldest sibling was already in elementary years, the 2 in the middle were still very small, making Miya's arrival feel both familiar and entirely new for the family. Her parents and siblings quickly gave her the affectionate nickname, Smiley. It wasn't hard to see why. Her cheerful expressions became a regular part of life at home. Her brothers and sisters adored her, often competing to hold her or make her laugh. Among those bonds, she shared a unique closeness with her brother, who was just over a year older. Despite their young ages, he seemed to have a special gift for drawing out her laughter. As months passed, Miya began reaching the milestones her family watched for with excitement. By 8 months old, she was working towards sitting up independently and was eager to move on her own. With a small head of brown hair and striking green eyes, she carried an appearance that left a lasting impression on everyone who met her. Her natural brightness often made ordinary days in the Tucker Rudd household feel extraordinary. Those who knew her best described her as curious and determined, with a spirit that seemed far older than her months. Her small hands and feet, combined with the joy she brought to those around her, made her a source of comfort and inspiration. Though her life was brief, her presence represented hope and renewal for her family. To them, Miya was not only the youngest member of their household, but also a reminder of innocence, possibility, and the joy that children bring. But before we begin, I just want to say thank you to my amazing viewers and subscribers. Your support through likes, shares, and comments means the world to me. Your engagement helps make these stories even more meaningful. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts. Although Miya's arrival brought joy, her environment was far from stable. Her parents, Tesla Tucker and 𝐀𝐫𝐜𝐬𝐿 Rudd, had married in early 2015 and went on to welcome 4 children over the span of several years. The first in 2017, followed by 2 more in 2021 and 2022. Before Miya completed the family in 2023. The couple resided in Reynolds Station, a rural area not far from Owensboro, where neighbors often viewed them with skepticism. Accounts from those in the community described them as difficult to get along with, sometimes careless in their behavior, and not always respectful of others' property. The challenges extended beyond reputation. The Tucker and Rudd families had long, complicated histories with the legal system. Miya's father, 𝐀𝐫𝐜𝐬𝐿, had been charged in connection with controlled substances, and by March of 2024 had entered a diversion program in place of serving a custodial sentence. His own father, Ricky Smith, also had past convictions related to substance use, and at one point was cited for not following the terms of his release. On the other side of the family, Miya's paternal grandfather, David Tucker, struggled with unpaid fines that had carried into court proceedings. Legal issues also touched Miya's maternal grandmother, Tifa Tucker. In Indiana, she faced accusations of theft and financial fraud, though many of those cases remained unresolved due to missed court appearances. Earlier records show that she also once received a short jail sentence for a separate insurance-related violation. These long-standing troubles suggested that Miya was surrounded by adults who, for a variety of reasons, had difficulty remaining in good standing with the law. While none of these circumstances diminish the joy her siblings felt for their youngest sister, they painted a complicated backdrop to her early life. In retrospect, the contrast was striking. A baby remembered for her laughter and bright eyes, born into a family that struggled with cycles of poor decisions and legal troubles. It was within this setting that her story began to unfold.
In late 2023, Miya's grandmother, Billy Smith, became involved in a dispute with a man who identified himself as her companion. Accounts suggest that the argument, which took place outside his home, grew tense over personal matters and eventually drew the attention of authorities. The following day, when officers were called to check on a woman who appeared to be resting in a car, they identified her as Billy. She admitted that a disagreement had occurred, but maintained she had acted in self-defense. Although no immediate action was taken at the time, a warrant was later issued in connection with the incident. This episode reflected a broader pattern within the extended family. Despite repeated encounters with the justice system, few meaningful changes seemed to take place. For child welfare officials, this created a difficult situation. Removing children from one unsafe household sometimes meant relying on relatives who themselves faced concerning histories. Over time, Miya's older siblings were placed with other caregivers, but she remained in the care of her parents, Tesla and 𝐀𝐫𝐜𝐽. From the very start, concerns for Miya's well-being were present. Hospital testing at birth raised early red flags, prompting Child Protective Services to begin monitoring her situation closely. Caseworkers made repeated efforts to reach the family through calls, home visits, and outreach to relatives. But those efforts were often met with limited cooperation. While some extended family members were willing to help, others were not considered suitable guardians. What should have been a straightforward effort to ensure a safe and stable environment instead became a drawn-out process. Each delay meant less protection for a child who needed it most. For Miya, the urgency of her situation was clear, yet the system was not able to act in time. The Cabinet of Health and Family Services, CHFS, had the ability to request support from the Kentucky State Police if they believed a child faced urgent risks. In Miya's case, there appeared to be sufficient concern to involve law enforcement resources, which might have accelerated the process of ensuring her safety. However, officials later confirmed that such a request was never made. When police were asked about what specific actions had been taken, they declined to comment due to the ongoing nature of the case. Around December 2023, a friend of Tesla and 𝐀𝐫𝐽 named Brody Payne began living on the property in a trailer with incomplete registration. At the same time, Ricky Smith, Miya's grandfather, was also staying there. Court records and later investigations suggested that this arrangement was more complex than a typical living situation. Authorities would later allege that activities involving controlled substances were taking place at the home, raising serious concerns given that Miya was present in that environment. Brody himself had a history of legal challenges in Indiana, including prior cases related to controlled substances. In fact, years earlier in 2016, a court order had placed strict conditions on the Tucker-Rudd household, specifically stating that the children were not to be inside the home due to safety concerns. Despite this, the order was not consistently followed, and at one point, testing confirmed exposure to substances among the older children, further reinforcing the risk present in the household. By mid-2024, state authorities were broadening their investigations into substance across multiple counties. This effort became known as Operation Summer Heat, a statewide initiative that received widespread media coverage. The program resulted in hundreds of charges and arrests, along with the seizure of cash and illegal items. Tesla, 𝐀𝐫𝐽, Ricky, and Brody believed they were operating without consequence, but their actions quickly drew attention. They relied on the postal system to move packages, a choice that carried obvious risks. Inevitably, authorities would begin noticing. And while their activities might have remained under investigation, it was not these transactions alone that would later make their household so widely discussed in Kentucky. A detection dog working with the Daviess County Sheriff's Office alerted to a suspicious package scheduled for delivery. The shipment, addressed to B. Payne, was examined and found to contain substances of concern. This discovery set in motion a months-long inquiry that eventually brought investigators directly to Brody's residence, as well as to those associated with him. Law enforcement arranged a controlled delivery and watched as Brody stepped outside to collect the parcel. At that moment, he was taken into custody. While he already had an outstanding warrant related to unpaid child support, this new situation carried more serious implications. Authorities soon discovered a second intercepted package also tied to him, containing counterfeit materials designed to resemble controlled substances. These developments significantly deepened the investigation. On May 20th, Brody was booked into the Daviess County Detention Center, and multiple charges were filed. His bond was set at $35,000.
Meanwhile, concerns for Miya's well-being were growing. The last time extended relatives recalled seeing her was in April of 2024. By early June, Tesla's sister, Alexis, heard from their grandmother, Tifa, that Miya had supposedly been placed in the care of Child Protective Services. While Tifa seemed to believe, or at least claimed, that story, Alexis was doubtful and contacted authorities to request a wellness check for her niece. When investigators visited the family home, no one was there and calls went unanswered. Speaking later with Tifa, detectives were told again that Miya had been taken by Child Protective Services on May 1st. But when they checked official records, there was no documentation to support that claim. Brody's arrest initially stemmed from substance-related activity linked to the Reynolds Station home and not directly from Miya's disappearance. Still, investigators quickly recognized the concerning fact that an ongoing operation had been maintained in the same household where a young child was reported missing. This raised additional questions, and law enforcement expanded their investigation. On June 6th, officers located Tesla, 𝐀𝐫𝐬𝐿, and Ricky at a Super 8 motel. The room was registered under 𝐂𝐫𝐬's name, and according to reports, investigators found multiple controlled substances present in plain sight. All three adults were taken into custody. When questioned about Miya's whereabouts, each of them stated they had no knowledge of where she was. The group faced charges that included endangerment, concerns, and substance possession, and they were transported to the Daviess County Detention Center with bonds set at $20,000 each. During the intake process, additional contraband was discovered on 𝐂𝐫𝐬. The following day, further charges were filed, including allegations related to organized. Ricky also faced additional counts because of his previous criminal history. Just days later, on June 9th, detectives followed another lead and visited Billy Smith in hopes of locating Miya. The child was not with her grandmother, but Billy herself was taken into custody due to unresolved warrants from the previous year. At the same time, another individual on the property, identified as Timothy Roach, was also arrested after officers observed concerning behavior involving prescription-only medication. Records later showed he had a lengthy history of prior offenses. Both Billy and Timothy were booked into the Ohio County Detention Center that day. The next day, Tesla, 𝐂𝐫𝐬𝐿, and Ricky appeared in court for their initial hearings, presided over by Judge Misty Miller of the 6th Judicial District. Later that same day, Tesla and 𝐂𝐫𝐬𝐿 faced additional proceedings connected to concerns over Miya's well-being before Judge Gregory Vincent of the 38th Judicial District. Ricky and Timothy also had their cases heard by Judge Vincent during this session. Because Miya was less than a year old and unable to care for herself, ensuring her safety became the top priority. Search teams combed through wooded areas near her parents' home and the cemetery on the hill close by. Authorities opened a public tip line and called in trained search dogs, while neighbors and community members stepped forward to assist. Although many in town had their opinions about Tesla and 𝐂𝐫𝐬𝐿, people put differences aside, united by the hope of finding the missing child. On June 12th, investigators returned to the home of Miya's maternal grandparents, David and Tifa Tucker, with a search warrant. Miya was not located there, but both grandparents were taken into custody for unrelated legal matters. Tifa had unresolved theft and charges in Indiana, and David had unpaid fines. Officers also collected electronic devices for review. Meanwhile, Miya's siblings were moved into a safer environment for their protection. The following day, additional charges were brought against Brody Payne. Beyond possession of restricted substances, he was accused of distributing them, participating in organized activity, and creating unsafe conditions for others. Throughout this period, Tesla and 𝐀𝐫𝐜𝐽 did not provide meaningful cooperation to investigators. They claimed Miya had been taken into state care, a statement officials later determined was misleading. Her grandparents also offered little clarity, and extended relatives had no knowledge of her whereabouts. This lack of information left the community unsettled, as residents who once believed their area was safe now faced the painful reality of a missing infant.
At that stage, there was still no indication of whether Miya was alive or had tragically passed away. If it was the latter, law enforcement suspected she might be somewhere in the wooded terrain near her parents' home or within the cemetery grounds. Initial searches with trained dogs brought no results, prompting officials to plan for more advanced equipment. The local coroner's office also joined in the continuing efforts to bring answers. Kentucky State Police spokesperson Corey King addressed the public with cautious words. He emphasized that the involvement of the coroner's office did not automatically mean Miya had passed away, but admitted the longer she remained missing, the more concerning the situation became. He also reflected on how substance use within families can create instability, affecting both individuals and the wider community. What troubled investigators even more was the lack of cooperation from relatives during such a critical search. King noted that it was deeply saddening to see family members unwilling to assist in efforts to locate a vulnerable child. On June 14, just 1 week after her disappearance was reported, the search came to a heartbreaking conclusion. Miya was located inside the home where she had last lived. What followed was confirmation that she had tragically not survived. She was transferred to the medical examiner's office in Louisville so that the circumstances surrounding her passing could be carefully reviewed. The residence itself quickly became a major point of concern. Officers documented conditions that were unsafe for anyone, especially for children. Investigators described clutter, hazardous items, and indications of substance use scattered throughout the space. Some of these items were found alarmingly close to areas where Miya had spent time. The environment was so unsafe that officers had to take special precautions before entering and conducting searches. It took multiple warrants and visits before the home was even stable enough for a thorough investigation. The fact that trained professionals had to worry about their own well-being while inside spoke volumes about the risks Miya would have faced in such surroundings. In total, 8 individuals were taken into custody during the broader investigation, including Miya's parents, maternal grandparents, paternal grandparents, and 2 others connected to the household. Once her passing was confirmed, 4 of them, Tesla Tucker, 𝐂𝐫𝐽 Rudd, Ricky Smith, and Brody Payne, were formally charged in relation to her mistreatment and abandonment. Miya Rudd's cause of passing remains officially undetermined. Due to the condition in which she was found, medical professionals could not reach a definitive conclusion. Despite this, the coroner's office classified her passing as a homicide, noting in their report that the circumstances and examination findings indicate the manner of death is best classified as homicide. Months later, toxicology results revealed traces of a controlled substance in Miya's system. Miya's aunt, Alexis, organized a GoFundMe to help cover funeral expenses. Her service, held on July 25th, included speeches, live music, prayers, and a sermon. 4 adults, Tesla, 𝐂𝐫𝐽, Ricky, and Brody, were initially charged with possession of controlled substances and firearms. After Miya's passing on June 14th, additional charges were filed relating to her case, including failure to report a child's passing, mishandling, endangerment, and criminal neglect. During the June 17th preliminary hearing, Tesla was visibly emotional as the charges were read. Ultimately, Tesla was found guilty of 10 charges, while the 3 men each received 13 convictions, including firearm-related offenses. After their initial convictions in November, Kentucky authorities filed additional charges against Tifa for allowing children to remain in an unsafe household, endangerment, and obstructing the investigation. Investigators also noted her financial involvement with Tesla and 𝐂𝐫𝐽, which complicated her prior legal issues in Indiana. Although the coroner classified Miya's case as a homicide, the first trial did not focus on that designation. It took about 6 months for DNA evidence to be fully analyzed. By January 2025, investigators presented new findings in an Ohio County courtroom, leading to expanded charges for the 4 adults. Authorities stated that the adults knowingly exposed Miya and her older siblings to a dangerous environment. A superseding indictment updated the charges for each adult, including 1 count related to Miya's passing and 1 count of criminal neglect for Miya and each of her 3 siblings. Ricky also faced additional charges as a repeat offender. Tesla, Ricky, and Brody pled not guilty on February 4, 2025, while Cage's arraignment was delayed to March. All remain in custody with separate $250,000 bonds.
The case also exposed concerns within Kentucky's child protection system. The state auditor's office oversees the ombudsman, who investigates when child welfare responses may be insufficient. In July 2024, the ombudsman temporarily lost access to the TWIST database, critical for investigations, after the database transitioned from the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, CHFS, to the auditor's office. Following legal action, full access was restored in September 2024, allowing oversight and investigations to continue. New legislation is being considered to ensure ombudsman access is protected. Miya's story also inspired citizen-led advocacy. Eric Williams, unrelated to the family, started a petition calling for Miya's Law, aimed at preventing parents with unresolved child safety concerns from gaining custody of newborns until improvements are made. The petition gained thousands of signatures within days. This momentum led to Baby Miya's Law, House Bill 574, sponsored by Kentucky State Representative Myron Dossett. Approved by a House committee in February 2025, the bill is set for further consideration on the main floor. The law would require reporting of newborns born to parents with ongoing custody or child welfare concerns, ensuring proactive safety measures. Miya's 3 older siblings are now living with their aunt Alexis and her partner John. Alexis recalled the day she learned Miya had tragically passed. I asked, "Is she okay?" And it was not okay. I lost a little piece of me that day. It was hard. Alexis and John are committed to giving Miya's siblings a stable, loving home alongside their own children. They deserve so much better than they've been given. Alexis shared, "We may not be their biological parents, but we will fill that void. They will be loved, cared for, and supported to enjoy life as children should. We'll give them the best opportunities and a safe environment to grow up in." The tragic loss of Miya Rudd reminds us how important vigilance is. If you ever suspect a little one is in danger, be their voice. Reach out to Child Protective Services or local authorities. Your action could make a life-saving difference. While this story highlights failures in the system, Miya's legacy also shows the power of advocacy. One person's efforts can spark meaningful change and help protect vulnerable children. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more true crime content that seeks justice and raises awareness.